Black Clover has changed forever with the latest plot twist. The Wizard King Julius Novachrono is the fourth Zogratis, Lucius Zogratis, who is possessed by one of the three rulers of the underworld, the time devil ASTAroth. But today we are turning all your beliefs about the plot twist from Black Clover Chapter 331 upside down and changing the whole game with a brand new, never before heard theory that supports our old theory that ASTAroth isn't evil and is actually Asta's father, with a new idea that Asta's father is also Julius Novachrono, who is controlled by Lucius Zogratis. So Julius is unknowingly the time devil ASTAroth himself. The real mastermind is Lucius Zogratis. This theory makes a lot of sense, depending of course on what Black Clover Chapter 332 and beyond will reveal. I would even go so far as to say it's one of the best Black Clover theories you've ever heard. Also, only a small percentage of the people who watch our videos are actually subscribed, so if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video. Let's go! Let's start by explaining who ASTAroth actually is in Black Clover. ASTAroth is one of the three rulers of the underworld, the Time Devil. We've been speculating about this for a while and now it's finally been confirmed. Why it was only a speculation from our side until now, despite the clear reference to the evil trinity of Lucifer, Beelzebub and ASTAroth from demonology, which we also predicted over a year ago, is because of how the Clifford concept was described in Black Clover, with Nacht explaining that the deeper the tree goes, the more powerful and higher ranking the supreme devils are, representing the position of Clifford. And so logically the most powerful devil are the three rulers of the deepest and final gate of the underworld. But the problem has always been that in demonology, ASTAroth does not represent one of the last positions of the Clifford, while the Clifford itself does not represent the hierarchy of the devils. But it is rather that each position represents certain attributes of life, and according to these attributes, the most suitable devil was assigned, resulting in ASTAroth representing the position called Chesed, which literally translates from Hebrew into English as love, which in turn is the German name Liebe. This is the first indication that Liebe has a connection to ASTAroth, just as Asta obviously has a relationship to the name ASTAroth. What I'm saying is that I highly doubt that Black Clover made a mistake in explaining the Clifford, but rather that the Clifford tree in Black Clover was intentionally misrepresented for some reason, which puts Nacht in a very suspicious position, since he was responsible for the explanation. We now need to understand why Nacht did this. And this is where it gets tricky. Damnatio has revealed that he has been studying documents from devil hosts of the Clover Kingdom that likely belong to the Faust family, Nacht's family that is known to practice demonology. From these documents, it becomes clear that Megicula is not one of the Clifford devils, which means that she most likely replaced ASTAroth, who was mentioned to have managed to escape the underworld for some reason. And the way Damnatio presented this to Julius made it look like the documents also noted that ASTAroth might have his lair in the Clover Kingdom. So it's quite possible that Nacht's family knew about all this. And since Nacht has become the head of the Faust family and has studied all the knowledge of the family, it is clear that he should have known everything but still presented the wrong information for some reason. I'm not talking about the possibility that he knew Lucius' plan, but the fact that the Clifford position are not based on the ranking of devils, or that Megicula is not the Clifford devil, and that the time devil ASTAroth is in the human world, possibly in the Clover Kingdom. Even if Lucius, Julius, ASTAroth, whatever, lied to Nacht, he should have known better from the beginning, so he is somehow covering up for ASTAroth. Otherwise he would not have concealed this crucial information. Or he is being manipulated just as Julius could be manipulated by Lucius if they are two different people. Whether Nacht did this intentionally to cover for ASTAroth, since the only false information about the Clifford ended up having something to do with ASTAroth himself, or whether he was manipulated by Lucius. In either case it has something to do with Julius, since both Lucius and ASTAroth are somehow connected to Julius. And that's why Nacht is so important to understand Julius' true identity, because he is Julius' spy after all. The connection between Nacht and Julius will become very clear if you consider the following. As we have mentioned many times, and it's more important now than ever, Nacht was the one who started watching Asta even before Asta joined the Magic Knights. And he also knew everything about Asta's devil Liebe, his grimoire, his anti-magic, and basically his whole life. The only person who could tell him all this logically had to know all these things about Asta and Liebe, especially about their connection, and therefore had to be someone who was in contact with Lysita before she even gave Asta away, or someone who somehow gained the knowledge of the person who was in contact with her, which is not impossible in the world of Black Clover. We have Lucius manipulating Julius, and we even have people like Marx whose magic is literally based on memories and who's also Julius' right hand. There's just no other way because all this knowledge about Liebe and Asta comes from a time when Lysita was still alive and Liebe was not yet sealed in the grimoire. To understand who this person might be, we need to do the same thing Damnatio did to expose Julius. Julius was the only person known to use time magic, so he is somehow in contact with the time devil, which turned out to be true. So let's just do the same. The only person who could have told Nacht about Asta is the only person who knows more about Asta than anyone else. And that was obviously Julius Novachrono. Although Julius denied knowing anything about Asta, when he returned in the form of a 13-year-old child, he suddenly knew some things about Asta that he had previously denied. He knew that Asta's power came from a devil before anyone ever knew about it. He also knew about the black horns and the cursed Vague, and even confirmed the existence of the underworld, which until that day was a completely unmentioned secret in Black Clover, something that only Nacht explained in more detail later. Logically then, Nacht could only have received this information from either Julius, Lucius, or ASTAroth, which means that one of them was the person in contact with Lysita. I mention all three names because these three have something to do with each other and we do not yet fully understand how exactly to explain them. And it all makes perfect sense because at the same time the only person Nacht was in contact with after the death of his brother Morgan was Julius. Since Julius was the one who sent Nacht to the Spade Kingdom to spy on the Dark Triad. And since Julius is proven innocent based on his inner monologues regardless of whether he is Lucius or another person at the same time, we can definitely confirm that Julius as we know him cannot be the person who was in contact with Lysita. So basically we can say that Julius was created by Lucius only after Lysita's death. And as we know, Julius Novachrono is the key figure between Lucius and ASTAroth. Both of them are the only one who could have been in contact with Lysita, so this is an absolutely logical proof. So that leaves only two people who are definitely confirmed to be two different people. Lucius the Fourth Zogratis and ASTAroth the Time Devil. This also raises the question of who Julius Novachrono actually is. Is he an altered personality of Lucius or is he ASTAroth, who is being manipulated by Lucius? Or maybe the two are even working together? The fact that Lucius and ASTAroth are most likely not working together is actually very obvious. Because it's likely that Lucius didn't have a contract with ASTAroth when we first saw him, because at that time he was still in a wheelchair, but now he can walk, which suggests that he received ASTAroth's legs after making something like a contract with him, just like Asta received Liebe's arm. So there must be a reason why it took so long, even though he claimed he was more talented than Dante when it came to being a devil host. Demonology says that you can't summon ASTAroth if you have evil intentions because he's just not evil. But I'm starting to doubt that was actually the reason in Black Clover. And when you really think about it, it makes sense why Lucius couldn't make a normal contract with ASTAroth, considering that Damnatio revealed that ASTAroth had actually escaped from the underworld, so there's no possibility for normal possession and summoning. This is because in order to make a pact with the devil, one must first summon them from the underworld. But if the devil is not in the underworld, there's no way to summon them to make a normal contract with them. So in this case, to gain devil power, you must first find the devil in the world of the living and then make a contract or perform a devil binding ritual or whatever method Lucius used to gain devil power from ASTAroth. In demonology, ASTAroth is mentioned in many cases of possession, which will then fit Black Clover since ASTAroth will then not be possessing Lucius but the other way around. ASTAroth will be possessed by Lucius. Let me make it a little more clear. There's literally no devil who could escape from the underworld and have the ability to live in the human world without having a contract with a human being, but then still choose to make a contract with a human. That's not going to happen. Especially not ASTAroth and the way he is described in demonology. A good devil, not evil, interested in humans, wants to live among humans, wants to look like humans, does not want to have anything to do with the devils or evil people. So ASTAroth had no reason to make a contract with Lucius when he was already free and living his life as Damnatio revealed that ASTAroth was living in the Clover Kingdom, or made the Clover Kingdom his lair. Now that we have explained why ASTAroth had no reason to work with Lucius, we just need to understand which of the two was in contact with Lysita. Was it ASTAroth Astaroth who was not yet manipulated, in which case we need to understand whether Astaroth is evil or good. Or Astaroth who was already manipulated but not in the form of Julius Novachrono. Or perhaps even Lucius directly. The reason it doesn't make sense that Lucius was the one in contact with Lycita without Astaroth being involved somehow is simply because there's no way Lucius Zogratis could have known all about Asta and Liebe before he met Astaroth. Because Asta is a mere magicless human and Liebe is just a supposed low-ranking devil, without a drop of mana, so literally completely uninteresting to any devil of the underworld. Besides, at the time when we saw Lucius in the wheelchair, that is, at the time when he most likely didn't have a contract with Astaroth yet, Asta wasn't even born yet and Liebe probably wasn't either, so the goal of making Asta and Liebe the ultimate weapon against Lucifer didn't even exist at that point. And so Lucius' only goal at that time was the devil power of Astaroth. So the only way Lucius could have gained knowledge of Asta and Liebe is that he first tried to achieve his original goal, and during that process or after he gained Astaroth power, he could have then learned about Asta and Liebe because of Astaroth and his memories. This means that Asta and Liebe must have had something to do with the Time Devil, which suggests that he was indeed the one in contact with Lycita and Lucius was after him at some point. And then the whole mess really started. Mess because that's just the beginning of the complexity of this theory. Before my partner continues with this mind part of this video, please take a moment to leave a like. Thank you.
But before we get to the part that will blow up your mind, we first need to understand very quickly whether Astaroth was in contact with Lycita with good or bad intentions, and what kind of relationship they had with each other in the first place. Lycita knew that not all devils are evil just because they are a devil, so she must have met a devil before. The only three known devils to have ever left the underworld were Astaroth, Zagrid, and Liebe. Zagrid was sealed. Liebe obviously makes no sense, so it is proven that she indeed met Astaroth, and that he's not an evil devil. In general, of course, it is impossible to know Astaroth's true intentions, since he could literally have lied to Lycita for his own purposes. He could have pretended to be Lycita's friend, or even her husband. Literally anything he wanted Lycita to believe could have simply been a lie. So this question cannot be answered yet. But if we have to decide what best fits Black Clover, given the clear evidence that Astaroth could possibly be Asta's and Liebe's father, and was very likely forced into a contract by Lucius, along with the fact that he is literally the only devil in demonology who is considered good, it is clear to us that Astaroth is not evil, just as Lycita said that not all devils are evil, since Astaroth, with whom she was in contact, is not evil, and so he and Lycita could have had a very special relationship. Besides the name Astaroth, which is a clear indication that he is related to Asta, and that his name is also derived from Astarte, the goddess of love, which is the English word for Liebe, which is also the name of his clifford position in Hebrew, just said, suggesting that Astaroth is also related to Liebe. There are other indications that speak for a possible father and son relationship. Just to take another example for demonology, it is often assumed that Astaroth had a son, who was depicted as a warrior in the form of a young bull, just as Asta, who is a member of the Black Bulls. Also, it is clear that Lycita had to have created Asta somehow, since she is his mother, and since literally all humans with mana would die instantly or almost die if they got too close to Lycita, it is simply impossible to imagine that she could have formed a relationship with a normal human, let alone make love. But here again, there is a clue from mythology, where Astarte, the goddess of love, later changed into the male demon Astaroth. This is often equated with the Virgin Mary. In Christianity, Mary is called the Virgin Mary because it is believed that the Holy Spirit impregnated her and thus miraculously conceived her firstborn son Jesus Christ without her having any physical relationship with her husband. So if this was used as a reference for Black Clover, then perhaps Lycita and Astaroth simply conceived Asta and Liebe in a different way than humans normally reproduce, which would also explain why Liebe, if we consider Asta and Liebe to be siblings, was born in the underworld, while Asta was born in the world of the living, simply because it is confirmed that devils are born in the underworld. So it is clear that devils reproduce differently. We have seen how Julius was able to block the communication spell between him and Marx. Also, we have seen how Lucius most likely used time magic to stop Damnatio's brain or whatever he did to him. So who knows, maybe ASTAroth actually has the ability to block Lycida's disease or stop it with his time magic whenever he's with her. Furthermore, there are clear indications that Asta could be a devil hybrid, and therefore his father must be a devil, which can then only be ASTAroth, since he was the only devil who left the underworld and was most likely in contact with Lysita. First of all, Asta is different from a normal human being. He has no mana. The only known being in the Black Clover universe who is exactly like Asta without mana is Liebe, who happens to look like Asta's twin in a devil version. Same hair, same face, same size, all the same, only devilish. This suggests a possible relation between the two. Also, the fact that Lysita immediately had such strong feelings for Liebe is a hint that she might really be his biological mother, and she just didn't tell him the truth because the truth would raise too many questions, and the answers to which would not be healthy for a young child. Also, Asta is clearly much stronger and faster than any normal human, which is actually an attribute of devils. And of course, Asta can also use a 5-leaf clover grimoire, which is said to be used only by the devils. So it is pretty clear that Asta could really be a devil hybrid. And so in this case, Lysita and ASTAroth could have been something like a family until Lucius decided to ruin everything. And now for the very complex part, which will most likely fry your brains out. So feel free to watch the following part a few times until you really understand it. In the manga, there is evidence that Julius can see into the future. So obviously, ASTAroth could be doing the same thing. For example, Julius mentioned he can see the future when he played cards against Seke while transformed as a grandma. He also said that he could see Bathory's future, and he could also predict that the Clover Kingdom would be destroyed or that Asta would die, or maybe even both together. In fact, this is also an important part of demonology. It is said that ASTAroth has prophetic dreams and visions. That is why he is called the Demon Lord of Prophecy, who knows the past, the present, and the future. So there is no doubt that he can actually see the future to some extent. As Julius has often indicated, there is probably a limit to how far into the future he can see, but it still means that ASTAroth might have seen at some point that Lucius would one day take over his body, which in turn could possibly give Lucius all the knowledge that ASTAroth has, and with it, the knowledge of the true hidden power of Liebe and Asta, which Lucius would then of course try to use it to his own advantage. We certainly saw that Asta saw Liebe's memories, so there is definitely some sort of connection between devil and their human host. Above all, Lucius seemed to have a certain magic ability that allows him to control people and possibly even see their memories. Maybe he even worked together with Marx. Remember what we have already explained, Lucius could not know anything about Asta until he met someone from whom he could get all the information. So if ASTAroth saw all that by using his time magic, then he must have made preparations to change their future, to bring the best possible outcome for his children, Asta and Liebe, even if it meant that Lysita would die and ASTAroth would be taken over by Lucius. Therefore, he must have needed to find a 5-leaf clover grimoire, or perhaps he had even already used the 5-leaf clover grimoire for himself, since we know that this is obviously something devils need in order to have their full power in the world of the living. If they chose to manifest as Zagrid did, perhaps ASTAroth was able to manifest in a similar way. Point is that he must have been the one who gave Lysita the grimoire, because Lysita simply could not have known that it was a 5-leaf clover grimoire, since it is clearly shown that no one could see the 5 leaves as the grimoire is so old, and she probably couldn't know what the purpose it has for the devils either, unless a devil told her about it. ASTAroth could have then told Lysita as he foresaw things and then put them together accordingly. It would be best for the children if he went to the underworld and threw Liebe out, which he might have done sooner or later anyway. This would then explain why the devil in the anime who threw Liebe out had the same tail symbol as Liebe, because maybe it was actually ASTAroth who returned to the underworld and acted evil, using his shape-shifting ability so no one would recognize him. Julius also has the shape-shifting ability, which by the way is also an ability that is often mentioned in demonology for the devil ASTAroth. However, before ASTAroth left for the underworld, he told Lysita that it would not be safe for Asta to stay with her, because with the current outcome of the future, future as they planned. He sees that Lucius would somehow manipulate Lucifero by letting him know about a devil who escaped from the underworld, so that he would then try to get Liebe for himself. And when that day comes, she must seal Liebe in the grimoire, while she might die in the process. That's why it was not safe for Asta to be with Liebe, and that's why she gave him away. Not because she's dangerous to him, as we've clearly seen that it wasn't the case when they were both close to each other without anything happening. This would also explain why she lived only a few minutes away from Asta, which we saw in the last chapters when she and Liebe were watching the sunset with the demon god skull in the background. She acted as if she could never see him again, even though we clearly saw that he was immune and literally lived nearby. So the reason she said that could be that she knew she was going to die because ASTAroth could have shown her the future. So basically ASTAroth could have seen that Lucius would one day try to gain control of his body, and when that happens, Lucius would then also gain the knowledge and thus interest in ASTAroth's children, Asta and Liebe, and then will try to use them for his own advantage, which ASTAroth tried to prevent by preparing this whole plan, which would eventually lead to Licita's death and ASTAroth's possession by Lucius, or the other way around, that ASTAroth was forced to possess Lucius. Both ASTAroth and Licita thus knew about this, but sacrificed their lives for their kids. It was indeed a terrible future for them, but the best possible future for their children. So the reason why ASTAroth didn't protect Licita was simply that it was either already the best outcome, so anything else would only mean more harm to their children, or he simply couldn't return because he was already in the hands of Lucius at that point. Perhaps because the moment ASTAroth decided to return to the underworld was also the moment he could be summoned from the underworld, allowing Lucius to force a contract on him, or ASTAroth simply saw that it would end badly for his family if he stayed with them. So he decided not to return so that Lucius would not harm his children by trying to take over his body. If you know that someone dangerous is going to come to you, then of course you will not wait at home with your wife and children for the dangerous person to show up. So it could well be that ASTAroth simply accepted his fate, believing that Lucius, having gained his devil power and thus possibly all his memories, which would also allow him to find out all the information about Asta and Liebe, would still fail. ASTAroth may have suspected that although Lucius would thereby also have learned of the future that ASTAroth saw, and thus of the preparations and predictions that he made based on that, only to have Lucius in the end ultimately manipulating Lucifero into attacking Licita, which would allow Lucius to take the grimoire and put it in the grimoire tower, so that one day Asta and Liebe would be reunited and become strong enough to defeat him, that Lucius would still decide to complete ASTAroth's prediction, because that's exactly what Lucius needs to do anyway to defeat Lucifero, even if he would risk to be defeated as well. He just needs an ultimate weapon. By accepting this future and thus being able to create his ultimate weapon, he also took the risk that Asta and Liebe would cause his defeat in the future, which could be ASTAroth's ultimate goal. But Lucius had confidence that with Lucifero's heart, he would become stronger so that Asta and Liebe could not defeat him under any circumstances. After everything happened, Lucius took the grimoire to the grimoire tower and then created Julius Novachrono to prepare the ritual and keep an eye on Asta. But who is Julius? Is it Lucius directly, or is it ASTAroth whom Lucius manipulated by making him think that he was human, while all the time he was behind all the suspicious behavior Julius suddenly kept showing? We will answer these questions in another video, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell so that you don't miss that video. So that's it for today, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to smash the like button, and if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe with the notification bell turned on. See you guys in the next video. Yami out.